Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of your one and only Tabitha Show right here on Alta TV. My name is Tabitha Chibula, your host for today and always, hopefully. And I have with me a very talented young man here. He's actually an author and he goes by the name of Lawrence Muganga. Mr. or Dr. Lawrence Muganga, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. So why don't you give everybody a brief explanation of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, you said it well, very brief, because if I described it, or it's
Right.
long, right? So my name is Lawrence Muganga, like you just said, and I'm a researcher, writer, author, and most importantly, two things: an educationist and a parent.
Educationist. Why so? Or how so?
How so? Because it's something that I hold so dear to my heart, and it has made me what I am. And I
Okay.
hope it changes the world if it is done the right way.
It changes the world. So I understand that you're perhaps even trying to change the world one book at a time.
That's right.
You have a particular book here, which was actually forward by Steve Revington. Tell me about that.
Steve is great. He's a pioneer of a type of learning we call authentic learning.
Okay.
The first person to come up with that kind of learning, and what that kind is all about, that kind of learning is all about, is learning in real life, in real life, based within the real world.
Okay.
Right? Where students have to learn, but at the end of the day have to come up with something tangible
Right.
to present, to share with their own world, their own
Right.
community.
Right.
Yes.
So the title of your book is You Can't Make Fish Climb Trees.
Yes.
Which is common sense. But why did you choose this particular title for this particular book?
It is because of the so many ills that are going on within the education system.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example.
Sure.
You've been a student, so many people have been a student
Yes.
around the world, right? So you sit in a class, a four-cornered kind of room,
Right.
and you have one person we call a teacher. Amazing people, by the way, but they have been let down by the system. Then they are teaching 20, 40 students, one person, standing in front of 40 people with different passions, different aspirations, thinking different. You're teaching them, for example, history. One
Right.
person wants to become a chef. One wants to become a musician. One wants to become a firefighter. But you've taken all their day teaching them history. So to me, that is a malpractice. So it's like you're forcing this child to become what they don't want to become. In other words, you're forcing a fish to climb a tree.
Absolutely. So why do you think that this is an important message that people need to hear about?
A very good question. So let's step back a little bit.
Sure.
Education as we know it has been here for at least, and I use at least, it is even more, 150 years,
Sure.
right? So, but we need to ask ourselves one question. What is it for? Right? So that question, we educators, taxpayers, parents, do not ask that question. What was education for 150 years ago, and what
Right.
is education for now?
Right.
Education was initially modeled to train a child to sit still, become obedient, and end up in the factory as a
Right.
factory worker. That's why you hear the bells, they sit in lines and everything. But when you look at the education we are going through today, it's the same. But is the world still in the 1900s? It has changed significantly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Where actually we need more socialization to make things happen. We need more diversity to make things happen.
Correct.
We need more creativity to make things happen. We need more innovation to make things happen. So not that the homogeneous way of thinking that was in the old model teacher-centered education system.
So correct me if I'm wrong. From what I'm understanding is that how teaching was back then is no longer relevant today.
That's very true.
So then we need to erase what happened then and or create brand new methods today, or what? Explain that to me.
I have an opinion, and
Absolutely.
that opinion is premised in this book,
Yes.
where I think that education doesn't have to live in the confine of a certain classroom.
Okay.
Students should, it should open up to go and happen in the community where these students live.
Right.
They start making meaning of what they're learning,
Okay.
such that if I want to be a writer, a journalist, a person who wants to work on a TV show, right? Why would I learn that in a classroom? Why not come and get a mentor in form of Tabitha, who is doing it on a daily basis,
Right.
and learn from this person the technical know-how?
Right.
Then, after 4 years of my school, it means that actually you don't have to ask me if I have experience, because I've been living this life. I've been doing
Right.
it.
Right. Right. Right.
Contrary to what is happening right now, that you teach this person what they need to learn as actually like a TV show host,
Sure, sure.
right? And then when they have to come to real life, they have to grapple with actually what real life means to them.
Yes.
And then employers have to tell them that, you know what, you don't have the required experience that we
Right.
need. So now think of a parent who spent
Okay.
all their money to send this child to school,
And they don't qualify.
and they don't qualify.
Right.
So that is a malpractice that we need to change. And how can we change that? Through the way educators are handling this important thing called education.
So now, when you speak of this particular thing called education, at what level or what grade do you think that there should be more diversity? Because a child that's in grade two, what they teach in grade two, I think is necessary. Your ABCs, which you'll need anyway for whatever it is that you do. So, at what level do you think that, well, they don't need to learn, for example, history anymore, or they don't need to learn math anymore? They can now start learning whatever it is that they're planning on doing.
Right.
What level do you think that would be?
In my situation, I write about post-secondary education. That
Okay.
is college, university,
Yeah, okay, okay.
and above. But the kind of method I am talking about in this book does not necessarily confine itself in universities or colleges. It can go down
Yes.
to kindergarten.
Okay.
For example, I'll give you one example of one teacher, amazing teacher I met in Finland, how they were
Okay.
teaching these the grade one students how to add and subtract. So they went and brought in a basketball expert, like a player, professional
Okay.
player,
Okay.
and they went to the basketball field, and then brought these kids to the court, and then grouped them into 4 groups. Then they started like throwing in, like scoring, right?
Right.
So they said, okay, they score. One scores like 7. And then the one team, so the other team scores 4. So then they ask them, how much do you have to catch up if you have 4?
Right.
And then these guys say 3. So in the process,
They were
in
learning.
an organic way, they're
Yes.
learning how to subtract 4 from 7.
Right.
And then you have your answer 3.
3.
So that is authentic learning happening.
Oh, okay.
In
Okay.
real life, in the community,
Yes.
and with the person who actually does it on a daily basis.
Okay, so it's more of post-secondary, so after high school. So anything from K to 12 is pretty
Yeah,
much necessary.
It is very necessary.
Okay,
yes.
sounds good. Sounds good. So actually, in your book here, if you allow me, I'm just going to read the first paragraph of story number 2, which is actually a personal story.
Right.
So in this book, it says, I was born, raised, and educated in Uganda, where my parents fled from the ethnic violence in Rwanda in 1959. As members of the Tutsi population, my parents felt oppressed in Rwanda, yet were accepted by the government of Uganda. Many Rwandan refugees lived in Uganda, and their children were accorded the opportunity to study in Uganda regardless of the quality of education. When I was growing up, many children struggled to complete primary school, and the vast majority of students failed to complete secondary school. Like many other children of Rwandan origin, whose parents had sought refuge and lived in Uganda since 1950s, my first experience of school was a refugee student. The conditions were difficult. So just let's flash back to this moment. Tell me about it.
It was one of those horrible moments that most of the time, not so good to remember, but good to remember to share,
Okay.
right? So just think of a situation where you are going to school, but maybe you have spent even 2 days without having a meal, right? Because
Okay.
you're a refugee child living in a refugee camp and
Right.
you just chanced to go to
Right.
school. And then think of a situation where you have to go to a school that is located 10 kilometers away from where you're living and you have to walk 20 kilometers going
My,
and
my,
back,
my.
right? It doesn't matter whether it rains, it doesn't matter whether it is too hot. You have to go over like different rivers, like go over those ones that if you're so lucky there is still a bridge, you go over it. But if it is so rainy in the rainy season and the bridge is washed away, then you
The
have,
bridge is washed away.
yes, there are these makeshift kind of bridges, right?
Okay.
Then you have to swim across if you know how to swim.
And if you don't,
then you don't
there's
go
no
to school
school.
for the next 3 months when they fix this bridge.
Now I'm just thinking, boy, do we have it easy in Canada? Oh my goodness.
It is, I mean, I mean, everything has its own flaws, right? They vary accordingly, right?
Yeah.
But you may say that if we have to compare things like in Canada, it's like one is living, the education is like living in what we have been told and we believe as like
Right.
the heaven of education and
Right.
then the hell of education.
Right.
There, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So now education wise, so like what was taught in the school, the content, what's the difference like?
That is another dilemma too. That's like you have a teacher, right, standing in front of these kids who have no desks, are seated on the ground, and is teaching them how to, I mean, dictating to them notes, and
Right.
you're writing
Right.
in your book, right?
Okay.
And then at the end of the term, the best person who could cram what the teacher gave them and replicated them in the exam, that standardized exam, then it was the best student. So nothing like learning, but it's a matter of like give me what you can give me, I swallow it, and then I keep it in myself perfectly well, and I bring it back to
Right.
you, and then give me the best grade you can. That's the kind of education system.
That's quite interesting. So in that, let's talk about Uganda particularly because that's where you were.
Right.
What would you change? Except for you can't really change the conditions of getting to school, and I'm sure it's different from when it was back then.
Right.
But content wise, what would you change in its education in general?
I would change so many things, but I would change how teachers teach.
Okay.
I would change the curriculum, right? But of course, that calls so many actors, stakeholders to step
Absolutely,
in,
yeah.
right? So one way of teaching is that are there problems we are trying to solve in the community, in society, right? So why can't we teach in a way that solves the problems we have
Right.
in society?
Right.
Right? Instead of, it's like teaching someone like 3 divided by 4, right? You know that the answer is 0.75. It is
I
no.
did not know that, but okay. That's good to know. That's okay.
Right, yeah. That's 3/4, you know that's 0.75,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, but you're teaching me that. The answer is known. Why can't we teach things that we don't know the answer? Or
Right.
we don't know any answer to those questions. Because every problem that comes to me, you, or any other person, you don't have an answer there and then. So you have to research for the answer. So we need to challenge these students. And that's when they innovate, they create jobs in the process, and they run away from that trap of all of them graduating looking for jobs.
Right.
And which jobs no one is creating because nobody is prepared to create these jobs.
And do you think it would be the same for here too?
Definitely.
Okay. That's quite interesting.
The same, I mean, look at everyone that is going to U of A, for example, and every other university here. Parents have to dig deep down into their pockets and send these students to school in anticipation that they are going to make a life. Little do they know that after 4 years, they are coming back home to sit with them at home. right?
Right.
And if they have the opportunity, they are going to go to McDonald's, work there, Tim Hortons. It's not bad, but honestly, no parent
Wishes that
wishes
after paying,
after
right,
paying or have a student loan as big as this, then
right.
so it is going on everywhere.
No, you're right for that. I definitely agree. And actually, if you agree as well, or even if you don't agree, I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to get this book ASAP, 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 because there's so much information in here that could actually bring light to one's eyes. So, absolutely go ahead and get it. It's a wonderful book. This is my copy. I'm never giving this
Oh
back
yeah, sure.
because my oh my, I need to start reading this as well. So I just want to thank you for taking time and sharing this with us. Contact information is going to be below. Make sure you contact Lawrence and get the book that you got to get because you don't want to miss out on this opportunity. And actually, briefly before I let you go here, as you know, the Tabitha Show custom, we're going to play a little game called Yes, No, and Maybe. So basically, all it is these cards here. You're going to be using them to answer particular questions. And best of luck. Are you ready for
Are
this?
you sure you're not teaching a fish to climb a tree?
No promises to that. Um,
Okay, let's do it.
okay, so actually, this is from some of our viewers right now.
Yes.
They admire your hair, very beautiful hair.
Oh,
But one other question is, would you ever rock an afro? User cards. No? Oh my goodness. Why not?
um, I think it depends on how I grew up, right?
Okay.
And how my dad really raised me, right? He molded me in such a way that this is how you need to see yourself.
Okay.
And in honoring him and his parenting, right? Yes, that's why.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And that's okay. That's fine. Would you ever challenge Michael Jordan to a one-on-one? Is that not your water to swim in?
Exactly. That's when you really don't want to swim in that type of water, right?
Okay.
You may drown.
You may drown.
Yes,
So are you a risky type of person or
I am.
you are?
Yes.
So would you ever go skydiving?
Yes.
You would. Oh my goodness. So
Actually.
I think we need to plan a trip and because I'm down to go skydiving,
Oh
so
yes.
we can definitely do that. And do you know what the Nene dance is? You don't know what the Nene
I
is?
have no clue.
So if I was to show you, could you do it for us?
Maybe because you're a dancer, I can try, but
Okay, let's try it. Let's try it.
Okay.
So basically, you just have to put your hand up and then sway. Nene.
oh,
Could you try for us?
so you just put your hand up,
Up and then
and
you
then you
sway.
enjoy the feeling, right?
That was very well done. That was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I will make sure we zoom in this part because that was spectacular.
Thank you.
Did you have any last messages to tell our viewers?
Yes. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Tabitha, for hosting me here and giving me an opportunity to share what my opinion is about education. So I think I have really done incredible work, which I have packaged in this book, and teachers, parents, educationists, and administrators, they would find so much value into it, and they could change the way we do things. It's not business as usual. The world has changed, right? The world has changed to the extent that the students today and the students of that time, they are incomparable. You can't compare. You can't compare us. If I remember I was in high school sometime in 90. That's when I finished high school, 1998, right? And learning how to even use a computer. That was the I started using a computer.
Right.
But my children today, they know everything about a computer. So when you look at a teacher who stands in front of students to teach them what they can research, there is no better teacher in the world who is better than Google. Google has everything.
Yeah.
So your role as a teacher is to become a facilitator, facilitate this student to sift through this information, get the right information. Otherwise, the best teacher is out there. The information is there. But the key thing is to guide this student into choosing the right information and apply it to their real life learning, not artificial learning that no longer helps them to become to bring out the real person
Sure.
that is really housed in this body.
Sure.
Otherwise, the education system we have, most of it is leaving the real Tabitha, the real student within themselves.
Absolutely.
This book does a great job to really show that.
I agree. Make sure you get your hands on that book ASAP. And thank you so much for taking the time and sharing the amazing talent that's going on in your mind that you wrote and that we will definitely read. And thank you all for tuning in with the Tabitha Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. We'll see you and good night.
Thank you.